Weeding with Crew, Nonfiction 500s by Rachel Jones. I am the school librarian at Tom C. Gooch Elementary, so I used our online catalog through TLC for my search. I limited my call number search to 500 to 600. I selected the 500 sections of my library to evaluate because this section holds items that are most requested by teachers and students. The 500s hold items related to the sciences, and just in the first 9 weeks of school, multiple teachers have requested books on the sun, planets, and the water cycle for curriculum enrichment, while students are always asking for materials on dinosaurs and various animals. In our elementary school, there hasn't been a dedicated librarian in years, so the entire library needs an overhaul. I decided to start with the most used area in the nonfiction section. The impression I got when diving into the holdings is that of what I already expected. There are many books that are outdated and have irrelevant information, boring illustrations, or both. There are even a few books from the 80s, one in which is about the moon. This is concerning due to the fact that information is always evolving in science. Specific criteria must be applied to ensure the retention of relevant and accurate materials. To effectively weed the 500s collection, I will need to evaluate the scientific accuracy of all materials within the section. I will also need to keep in mind the school's curriculum needs and ensure the materials on the shelf align with the topics being taught. That being said, I must keep in mind the popular aspect of the 500s. I wouldn't weed materials that don't match the curriculum if they are popular with the students. I would, however, consider items that have low circulation and uninteresting illustrations. I will make sure the collection includes works from reputable institutions and publishers, as well as assess the physical condition of each item. The goal is to tailor the collection to meet the needs of the learning community that uses it. This means not only keeping curriculum and popularity in mind, but also the level of reading ability and embracing diverse formats, all while weeding the redundant or outdated materials. To utilize the CREW method, I will continue to evaluate and review the 500s collection by establishing a set schedule. I will assess the accuracy of the materials within the collection and discard materials that are redundant, outdated, and/or damaged. I'll pay close attention to the specific topics that are ever-changing. When it comes down to what actually needs weeding, I must also take into account my district's policies. If a book is over 20 years old, it must be considered, especially in the sciences. I would probably question some books that are 10 years old, depending on the topic. I also must consider the checkout numbers. If a book hasn't been checked out in 5 years, I must evaluate it. Since my library hasn't had a librarian in a few years, I have to take into account that the students haven't had access. I would then need to use my better judgment in order to determine if a book catches the interests of the community. Again, I would remove books with physical damage or outdated information. Realistically, with science, a book could be a couple of years old and be irrelevant. Here I have presented my holdings numbers for the 500s collection in order to discuss how effectively this area has been weeded. It is clear that this section has not been effectively weeded or even weeded at all in quite some time. The majority of the holdings were published more than 10 years ago. Depending on what topics these materials are on, that could mean highly inaccurate and obsolete information is sitting on the shelves. Although I'm interested to deep dive into this collection and get it up to date, I also know that I have my work cut out for me, and this is just a small portion of the library as a whole.